The U.S. Court of Appeals for the Sixth Circuit is being asked now to hear a case against efforts by Michigan's Attorney General to target organizations labeled hate groups by the disgraced Southern Poverty Law Center. Now, this type of thing has been going on for a long time, but this lawsuit is huge. The Michigan-based American Freedom Law Center filed this lawsuit back in 2019, and they're claiming that they were unlawfully targeted for and experienced horrible treatment based on their political views and the political views of those that they represent in court. And they also are claiming that the government endorsements of the SPLC exacerbated the problem, their financial and reputational harm that they experienced by the government involvement with all of this. So are they going to be heard as this lawsuit goes forward? Well, joining me now to discuss this is constitutional law expert Robert Muise. He's co-founder and senior counsel at the American Freedom Law Center. Robert, welcome to Washington Watch. Thank you so much for joining us.
Great. It's my pleasure to be here with you, Jody. Thank you very much.
All right. Let's go back, if you will, take us back to 2019. What lit the match here? How'd this all get started?
Yeah, very interestingly, I received a phone call from, I believe it was a reporter from the Detroit News, who said, so what's your response to the Attorney General's and the Michigan Department of Civil Rights press release where they just announced that they were going to go after all the 31 so-called hate groups that are operating in Michigan? And they linked to the Southern Poverty Law Center's hate map. And you click on that link, and it's listed alphabetically. The first hate group that's on the list of the Southern Poverty Law Center is the American Freedom Law Center. And in this press release, they pulled no punches. They said they were going to go after these organizations. The so-called hate can't, thrive in the state of Michigan, and they're going to start this database with all these groups and their activities they're going after, that they're pursuing. They said that Dana Nessel, the Attorney General, said she's creating this hate crimes unit specifically to go after these organizations and these groups. So my response was to file a lawsuit 6 days later in the U.S. District Court for the Western District of Michigan. And, it's interesting. So that was filed in 2019. And I know that, the Family Research Council has been targeted as part of this list as well. And
right.
Domestic terrorists went after them because they were on this list. If you're on this list, and there's been organizations that try to debank anybody who's on this list. There's organizations that try to, get organizations like, Charles Schwab and these other financial institutions where a lot of these donations go through, because we're a 501c3 like you are. We have to rely on donations to stop them from coming through. The Amazon has had a program called Amazon Smiles, where people could donate a certain amount of proceeds to their favorite organization. But if you're on the Southern Poverty Law Center's hate list, then you're ineligible to be part of this. We filed a lawsuit.
Yeah,
because as you mentioned, it's one thing when the Southern Poverty Law Center, private organization, wants to name you or designate you as a hate group. But when you have the top law enforcement officer of a state using that as a means to target political opponents, right, with all the power and authority that the state attorney general has, now you're triggering constitutional violations. And that's why we allege violations of the First Amendment. Yes.
Yeah, that's the big deal. I mean, it is one thing when the SPLC says what they want to say, but when the government gets behind them, endorses those comments, and gets behind it, it gives a stamp of approval and authenticity to the claims. That's an entirely different issue.
Absolutely, right. And the Attorney General, think about all the power and authority she has, the law enforcement authority, the law enforcement power. And this has a chilling effect, right? When she says very publicly, we're going to target these organizations listed, right? That has a chilling effect not only on our work, but clients who might want to hire us to do the legal work for them, or donors who want to support us. And I'm sure you've probably seen this, the Family Research Council with the American Freedom Law Center. Anytime you have a mainstream media news story about us, it always will say American Freedom Law Center, designated by the Southern Poverty Law Center as a hate group, right? They always have to throw that in there. But again, the point is, when you have the Attorney General who has publicly said that she's going to use her law enforcement resources and power, and has already done so by issuing this press release that, Detroit News and everybody else is picking up on. That is targeting and harming our reputation. We're not a hate group.
Absolutely.
Let
me give you a final question. We've only got about a minute left. What's your hope with this case looking ahead? What do you think is going to happen?
Interesting. In 2019, they filed a motion to dismiss on standing grounds. The judge denied it in a great opinion in 2020. Waits 4 years to rule on our summary judgment motions and then dismisses us on standing. We plainly have standing under Supreme Court precedent, Sixth Circuit precedent. Harm to reputation is an injury. And quite frankly, I'm pretty confident that we're going to ultimately prevail in this lawsuit and get the relief that we want to, declare that this is unlawful to target us and to expunge all the government records that list us as a hate organization. And so that's what we're after. And hopefully, again, that will help repair our reputation and others who have been targeted, like Family Research Council, by the Southern Poverty Law Center. That's ultimately our goal.
Well, Robert Muise, co-founder and senior counsel for the American Freedom Law Center, I want to thank you so much for standing, for pushing back. This type of stuff by the SPLC has gone on long enough, and it's time for this to come to an end. Not only the false claims, but the way it's been used by the government to inflict all sorts of damage and dangerous situations. Thank you so much for joining us today on Washington Watch.